What's up, guys? In today's video, we're gonna continue with the Emacs series. So, in my first video in the Emacs series, and actually the first video of the whole channel, I talked about Emacs is actually much more than a text center, has things like games built in. But in today's video, we're just gonna kind of concentrate on Emacs as just a standard text center. Okay, so the first thing you want to know is the fact that Emacs, when you launch it by default, it's gonna launch in a graphical window like this. Now, Vim on the other hand by default will launch in a terminal. And if you want, a graphical version of Vim, you have to install Vim, which is actually a separate package. Now, if you want to launch Emacs in a terminal, you would do Emacs minus NW, which is so for no window. And now basically, it also has this. Believe it or not, in the terminal version, they do actually have this menu at the top, just like they do in the graphical version. Now, to access the menu at the top in the terminal, you just do F10, and you can basically kind of just navigate to this menu. Escape there, and Control X and Control C will basically just quit out of that. And actually, Control X and Control C will actually quit out of Emacs in the graphical version as well. And also, to access this menu at the top, you can obviously just use your mouse, which is a no-brainer, or you can still use F10 in it, which will still work. Alright, the next thing that we want to know about Emacs is how it navigates. So how you navigate text. So you can either use the arrow keys, which is again a no-brainer, or you can use the Emacs navigation keys. So Control N will go to the next line, Control P will go to the previous line, Control F will go forward, and Control V will go backwards. Control E will go to the end of a line, and Control A will go to the beginning of a line. So you might be wondering, wait, hang on a second. So why should I use the Emacs keys? This Control N, this Control P, and this and that, rather than, the standard ho-hum arrow keys? You could use the arrow keys, but the advantage of the, Control and Control P and things like that is, the advantage is that, because, you can kind of keep your fingers, on the keyboard rather than moving all the way over, to outside the keyboard, getting the arrow keys. And again, using the arrow keys is completely legitimate, but Control and Control P and things like that could still be quite useful in Emacs. Alright, okay, now let's say I want to edit an existing file. So we can do Control X, Control F, which is, the find command to find a file. And now we can find a file. So for example, chess, readme.org. So I have this file called readme.org in another directory. So basically, actually, I want to kind of pause for a second, and talk about what I just did there. So I just opened a file called readme.org. So .org at the end. So you probably haven't even heard of that file extension before, but it's actually something called org mode, which is actually something specific to Emacs, which is one of the really nice features about Emacs. So Emacs has this thing called org mode, which is basically, you can kind of think of it as Markdown, basically, if you're familiar with Markdown. It's kind of like maybe even like an improved version of Markdown in a way, for example, maybe you can insert, source code blocks and, links, and that's kind of similar to Markdown in some respects. Alright, but enough of, editing existing documents. How about, let's create a fresh new document. Okay, so Control X, Control F, again, the find command. And let's say I want to create a new file in my home directory called new.txt. So if the file exists, Emacs will just, open it. If it doesn't exist, Emacs will automatically create it. The thing that you want to note is that, for example, okay, let's say I start typing something. And maybe I save it, right? So then now let's say I start typing new text, and like this. Okay, let's say I start typing new text, and now let's say I quit out of Emacs just like that. And whoops, I think I forgot to save my changes, right? So actually, it's a Control X and Control S will save your changes, but which I did the first time. But now I started typing new text, and now it's asking me, do you want to save the file? Okay, but I don't think I want to save this file. Let's type modified buffers exist, exit, and this is like a final confirmation. Otherwise, there's really no going back. So yes. And now you can see, now that we've exited, it's actually created this file called new.txt. But so actually, it's hashtag new.txt hashtag. So basically, this is like an autosave file. So basically, this is how it works. So basically, Emacs what it does is, even if you tell it like, okay, I just want to quit out of it, it actually creates an autosave file for it. It's like, if you regretted all those changes that you've done, then you can still go back. So let's kind of find that file again. Okay. Control X, Control F, new.txt, and now it says new.txt is autosave data. So consider mx recover this file. So m-x. So basically that means so m actually stands for meta. So that means the alt key. So alt x recover dash this dash file, and now we can actually kind of recover the file. Now it's asking us, do you want to recover the file? We can say yes, and it actually uses that hashtag new.txt hashtag file to basically recover your your files. So that's basically like Emacs's way of kind of saving your buffer, even if you decide that you just kind of want to discard all changes and exit. Okay, but let's say you want to have like a built-in terminal. You want to have like an integrated terminal. So so you want to access a terminal like from within Emacs. So rather than specifically open up a new terminal. Like let's say you just want a terminal just like that. So what you can do is you can go to this menu over here as a tools, or you can just hit F10 and make our way to that. So tools and then shell commands, and then you can either just run a shell command or just run a shell interactively. And then basically what it does is it kind of puts like a terminal side by side just like that, as almost as if you actually just open up a terminal separately. Now I guess the disadvantage with kind of opening up a terminal this way is because well, number one, you actually have to use Emacs to do it, and number two, oddly enough, we can actually kind of delete this text here if you want. And if you're not paying attention, you've just deleted your prompt, your shell prompt. So now it's really kind of interesting because you can actually just delete the whole buffer over here, which kind of makes it a little odd. So yeah, I guess that's a disadvantage because number one, you have to open it within Emacs, and number two, you can kind of just delete the whole buffer. But it can still be useful, like if you're actually paying attention, like trying not to make those silly mistakes. But yeah, my point is that Emacs does have a built-in standard terminal like built into it. Okay, so let's say you want to kind of search for a certain search term in a document. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about let's go to the beginning of the document. Let's talk about searching for a piece of text. So it's like a search term that's it's like anywhere in the document but before the like your cursor is. It has to be after where your cursor is. So let's do Control S, which is kind of like the like I guess I search or whatever it is. So basically, we can kind of just search for something like search term, and you can see it has found our term basically. You can hit enter, and there you go. And, yeah, so it's basically found our search term. Okay, let's go to the end of the document maybe. And let's try Control R so we can search backwards. So then we can search for search term, and it has searched backwards. So basically, it just search. So Control S will search forward, and Control R will basically just search in reverse or backward. Another nice feature of Emacs is this customized build option. So basically, we can go to this menu over here, options, or if you so insist, we can press F10 and make our way to this menu over here, options. Customize Emacs, and now we can actually set some kind of thing. So as you can see in the background, I have a nice dark theme set. For example, let's go back to that readme.org file. You can see I have this really nice color scheming set. So so I'll show you how I do that. So basically, we go to options, customize Emacs, and custom themes. And then basically from here you can just select a custom theme. Like for example, maybe you wanna for example, I have this one called TSDH-dark. Maybe if you want to use this Tangled theme, you can use that, I guess. We can, either click with our mouse, or again, if you so insist, you can just use your keyboard, I guess, to do that. And basically, the point is that, you have, a whole bunch of, options available to you in Emacs. So, Emacs is very customizable. You can manage your themes and, all sorts of stuff. Another useful feature about Emacs is also the fact that, it has built-in documentation. For example, you can go to the help menu over here, or again, yes, we can use F10. Alright, and now basically it has some options here. For example, Emacs tutorial, Emacs tutorial, I guess in other languages, Emacs FAQ, Emacs news, known problems, bug reports, and you can search the documentation. It basically has some pretty big documentation. So let's just open the standard Emacs tutorial. And it has some pretty good documentation. In fact, this is actually the way that I kind of learned how to use Emacs myself. So this is actually the way I learned how to use it. Like this. So basically, yeah, I learned how to use Emacs actually with this document. So it's pretty useful. So it teaches you how to use Emacs and things like that. Also, there's like for example, maybe you can read the Emacs manual. So this is basically like the whole Emacs manual, and actually, I think this actually kind of opens apparently it seems to open some kind of web browser or something. And believe it or not, Emacs does actually have a built-in web browser. It's a very minimal browser, okay? Well, okay, not as minimal as like a text-based browser like links, but it's still rather minimal when you compare it to something like maybe Brave or something. So I'm not saying that the Emacs browser will replace the standard browser. Like personally, I use the Brave web browser, so I'm not saying this is going to replace your web browser, but it can still be useful. Like for example, I don't know, maybe you're accessing like the Emacs tutorial, then it can still be pretty useful. Which I guess is probably the whole point of this built-in browser within Emacs. And also, I do know that by default, when you start with Emacs, it says at the bottom for information about the GNU Emacs, about GNU Emacs and the GNU system, type control is control. And so my point is that, that Emacs does have quite a few built-in, facilities. Like, for example, the Emacs tutorial, news, and then they also have, like, a proper manual, and then they also have, about Emacs and, things. So this is actually basically the default screen for Emacs, so, like, kind of disable that thing. But basically, this is like so for example, authors contributing, GNU and freedom, like free software, like the free software movement, and basically things like that. Anyway, so yeah, that was the video. Just talking about Emacs as a standard text editor rather than its other features like 10% off. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll see you in the next one.